Take a deep breath for me. Hello, I'm Kwan Siu. Chapter 10, You've Got to Be Kidding Me. 25th August 2022, Thursday. What are we going to do with you? Asked a frustrated Dr. Dewar as he marched into my room. We have to stop meeting like this, I sniped. This is an old-school antibiotic. Just look at the size and color of the capsule. Dr. Dewar explained, referring to the antibiotic prescribed to me a week ago. Stronger side effects are expected. You should have stopped and let me know when you were not feeling well. You are not going to drip me, aren't you? You should already know that when you come here. Will it be the thick, painful one? No, I'll give you the diluted one. I will also send you for a detailed ultrasound at imaging just to make sure your hydronephrosis has not gotten worse. That jolted my focus back to my bloated kidney. In recent months, I had adapted to my newly established drinking habit. No, that sounded wrong. Hydration habit. Thoughts about my distended half kidney out of my mind as it should be. Dr. Dewar had told me, and I had even researched, that mild hydronephrosis was seldom threatening. I should stop being so sensitive to receiving suggestions for scans and tests. I had not learned to deal with this very well yet. I had to calm my heart down from thumping wildly. I had an uneventful couple of months, except for a minor leg injury. Over this period, I came back for a follow-up with Dr. Dewar twice. My condition remained unchanged, mild hydronephrosis. I continued to monitor my temperature every day, although I didn't send them to Dr. Dewar anymore. There were days when I would get a fever and suffer from pain, but they were non-consistent. During one of these follow-up sessions with Dr. Dewar, which happened 3 days ago, we discovered that I had an infection. Again, this time I was infected by 2 different strains of bacteria instead of just one. I needed a different antibiotic, one that worked for both strains, and it didn't agree with me. In just 3 days, I had lost a substantial amount of weight from throwing up and not being able to keep food down. I knew it was one of the side effects, but I was too stubborn to stop and start a new course with another one. I thought I could endure it for the remaining days, but I thought wrong. On the 3rd day, I got so ill that Kermit vehemently demanded I get to the hospital. He put me in his car this morning, and now here I was. Once I accepted that coming here was inevitable, everything went on autopilot. I threw a few things into my conspicuous transparent luggage. At this point, I already established a set of clothes which I always brought to the hospital. Comfortable to lounge in, yet not too revealing. Looking respectable was important to me. They were worn and shabby though, but I didn't much care. There was no one in the hospital that I needed to look fabulous for. When I felt awful, comfort was a priority to me. Clothes, almond milk, cookies, chocolates, laptop, Kindle. I was mentally crossing off my invisible checklist as I dumped things into my bag. As I zipped my luggage close, a sense of surrender washed over me, relinquishing a non-existent control, finally allowing this situation to take its course. What's up? I said, I am officially your most exasperating patient. Dr. Dewar said, I like challenges. Later in the afternoon, I had a roommate. I didn't have a good look at her because I kept the curtains around my bed fully drawn all the time. I was very antisocial. She sounded youthful. Shortly after she was admitted, her doctor came to see her. From their conversation, I learned that she had acute gastroenteritis, a bombastic word for a lousy spell of food poisoning, and was very naive to have thought that she could go home sometime in the evening. No, woman, you needed drips, bags and bags of them, until you were as hydrated as a fish. When I came back from my ultrasound scan, I found her fiddling with the air conditioning settings. She was bundled up like an Eskimo. Do you need help? I asked, knowing the tiny panel on the wall would not work. I'm trying to increase the temperature a little bit, if it is all right with you, she said timidly. You cannot control the temperature of the air conditioning at all. This thing doesn't work, I told her plainly. And I should know. You can turn it off if you are cold. I am fine with it. With another person in the room with me, I would prefer the air conditioning running more for circulation than comfort. However, I could not bring it upon myself to insist, seeing her breathless and shivering. To be here, very likely she had lost an excessive amount of fluid. She couldn't be feeling very robust at the moment. No, it is okay. I will call for the nurse to come to help us, she said, not wanting to subject me to a room without air conditioning. I appreciated her thoughtfulness, but I knew it was a futile effort. I had tried for half a year, but I didn't say anything. So I was wickedly smiling when the nurse told her the same thing, Eventually, she had to turn it off. Dr. Dewar came to see me in the evening and reported to me the observations from my ultrasound scan. No change, mild hydronephrosis. "Why is there no aircon in here?" he commented. "My roommate is cold," I whispered. "Can't you get her a room of her own?" he asked Jasmine, who came in with him, like he was suggesting something from a menu. "The ward is full, doctor," said Jasmine, as expected. "It's fine. Furthermore, I don't need to be here for very long, right?" I asked. He didn't answer me. Bollocks. 26 August 2022, Friday. "What's up?" Stefan said. "Are you in the hospital again?" I said yes. Stefan said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Nothing serious." Stefan said, "Call me when you can." I said, "It's past midnight in Berlin. Go to bed." Stefan said. I said, "Call me, and next time, please let me know when you are in the hospital." I said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Obediently, I called Stefan and updated him on all that had happened, and he seemed to think that I kept getting an infection due to the lack of rest. "Your body is not a machine. And you are an engineer, not a doctor. You are an obstinate cow. And you are a meddling chicken." I was talking in whispers, not sure if my roommate was awake. Listening to our conversation, one would presume we were two bickering teens instead of two middle-aged adults. At one point, I had to stop, because I couldn't chastise Stefan for caring. It wasn't my intention to work myself into a hot and painful mess. However, I could not bring myself to be idle. I had been out of commission for donkey months, and I lived with the guilt that I had wasted a portion of my life by not being productive. Stefan said I was mad, and I was too exhausted to fight back. "Anyway, I am glad you are in the hospital," Stefan said. "What? Seriously, you're such an arse." "At least you can get uninterrupted rest." "If you don't pick a day to rest, your body will pick it for you," quoted Tony Robbins. Although not many knew that I had been in the hospital a lot of late, fewer knew about my admission this time. I felt it unnecessary to update anyone for something so trivial. After I said goodbye to Stefan and made a promise to update him on my progress in the coming days, I hung up. My roommate could be asleep, or perhaps not. In terms of roommate, she proved to be an excellent one. I was hardly disturbed, as there were no irritating sounds from videos or loud phone conversations. It felt like an unspoken agreement between us to keep our phone volumes turned off. By evening, she was free to go. I was jealous. She came over to say goodbye and almost skipped out of the room. 27 August 2022, Saturday. It was 3 a.m. when I was awakened by a loud commotion and someone turning on all the lights in the room. My first thought was there was a fire emergency and we needed to evacuate. Years of working in a manufacturing environment had programmed me to be alert to inconsistencies. However, this was anything but. "No, I don't want my mother to share a room. Admission told me we are getting a single room, and I want it now." A woman was screaming at the top of her lungs at the entrance to the room. For goodness sake! Not only I could hear her screech, but at this quiet hour, the entire building could hear her. "I am sorry, ma'am. This is the only bed available in this ward," whispered the nurse, but it fell on deaf ears. The problem with stubborn people was that they didn't think they had a problem. "This is not what I was told. I don't want another person in the same room with my mother," she continued. "Well, the other person in the room didn't want you in the room too, but tough luck. It was what it was." Couldn't she just take this up with the admission desk, since they were the ones promising her a single room? I was very much awake now and a little annoyed. I knew the nurses couldn't do anything about that rabbit woman, but the least they could do was not turn on the lights at my side of the room. After the nurses left, she continued her chant of annoying complaints with her maid, whom I assumed to be her mother's caregiver. I was silently screaming in my head. I wanted to sleep. Just as I was about to drift off, the door to the room opened again, and a nurse came in with the admission questionnaire. They were going to play 50 questions. I was going to turn stark raving mad. Not that I had no sympathy for the elderly patient, it was just that her daughter was very rude and inconsiderate. From the answers to the questionnaire, I found out the patient was in her late 80s, had been through too many surgeries, was currently on too many medications, was diabetic and came in for dialysis 3 times a week. She couldn't speak and she couldn't walk. She was admitted when she suddenly passed out in the middle of the night. I felt for her. I was not without compassion. It was just her daughter I was annoyed with. However, despite screaming hyena's rude and condescending comportment, she was a good daughter. Although their caregiver was there, she stayed with her mother throughout. I tried very hard to go back to sleep, but dawn was approaching and so was routine monitoring of my vitals and my antibiotic drip. This was not the rest I anticipated. Later in the morning, there was another loud commotion, this time outside. A man was screaming at the nurse's station, unreasonably demanding a single room for his wife. Another one? He was slamming the countertop and refused to listen to reason, yet his argument was totally incoherent. Oh, come on, dimwit. Everyone wanted their own room. What made you think you were more deserving? Little wonder why there were posters around the hospital asking the public not to abuse healthcare workers. At first, I found it strange, but after witnessing this, it was well warranted. Towards the afternoon, Natasha came in and discreetly whispered to me, "Do you want to switch to a single room?" She had to ask. My heart started to thump wildly. There was a sudden burst of energy within me. "That's one available now?" I asked guardedly, almost afraid of premature acceleration. "A patient has been discharged. If you want it, as soon as housekeeping has cleaned it, you can move in," said Natasha. After thanking her profusely to the point of embarrassment, she left me to pack. "Courtesy costs nothing, but buys everything," quoted Hazrat Ali bin Abu Talib. About half an hour later, I was joyfully settled in my new room. "I see that you have moved," observed Dr. Dewar when he came to see me. "Yes, I've upgraded my real estate." "Good, now you can stay for longer." His humour was mostly dark. "Can I go home tomorrow?" I asked. "An antibiotic course is 5 days," he said firmly. "But we can manage with 3, right?" I negotiated like I was an expert in infectious diseases. "Since your infection didn't go away despite the oral antibiotics, it is best that you complete the whole course," stressed Dr. Dewar. "What?" "No." I knew I was behaving like a child, but I was very tired of my circumstances and I felt that I was wasting Dr. Dewar's time and hospital resources. "Fine. If you are so stubborn about it, I will let you go tomorrow, after your 9th dose." I believe Dr. Dewar was losing his patience with me, although he didn't show it. When Yoda called, I updated him on my development. "Dewar said I can go home tomorrow," I told him excitedly. "That's a little rush. I thought it was 5 days." I insisted a 3-day course is enough. "Since when have you gotten more qualified than him?" "I've had enough infections to know what to expect." "Exactly, which is why you shouldn't challenge his approach." "Oh no, not him too." I didn't know what to say. I thought he would be happy that I would be home soon. Throughout the period when I was out of commission, the person most affected by my absence was Yoda. I could easily work remotely, but I was not able to fulfill my responsibilities in our household in the same capacity. Yoda and I had an unusual partnership of order and chaos that worked beyond the borders of convention. Friends thought we were cool, but our parents regarded us as demented and had long given up on chastising us. We were complete opposites, yet somehow respected each other's opinions enough to reach an agreement on important decisions. I believe it was our distinct differences that made our life together very comical and unpredictable. Without a plan or a routine in our disorderly existence, all aspects of our household had in one way or another fallen into place, and the continuation of this messy management, or lack thereof, had never been more tested than this trying period. In my opinion, you should stay and complete the course. What is another couple of days? Remember what happened last time? Yoda was referring to my first standing attempt back in April when I was in a hurry to get home, but had to return to the hospital 2 days later. Yoda had put up with major disruptions in his work and routine without any indication that he was inconvenienced in any way, to make sure I received the best care and returned home well. The least I could do was be reasonable and obedient. "What's up?" I said. "I will complete the 5-day course." Dr. Dewar said, "Smart girl." Before the end of the day, Dr. Dewar was back. I couldn't remember how our conversation progressed, but 30 minutes later, he was enlightening me with details about gender-affirming surgeries. It wasn't a process that could occur instantly. For individuals committed to undergoing these surgeries, note the deliberate use of the plural, it entailed months of preparation, including numerous tests, scans, and medication. Dr. Dewar proceeded to describe the entire procedure in explicit detail, completely disregarding my apprehension. But my advice is, whoever is interested in going through this, just tell him or her, don't. It is a painful and difficult journey. Just make do with being a cross-dresser. That made for a good bedtime story. "What's up?" Kermit said. "Are you keeping well?" I said. "I finally got a room to myself." Kermit said. "How come?" I said. "Someone discharged." Kermit said. "A dead patient is also a discharged." I said. "You're an asshole." 28 August 2022, Sunday. Dr. Dewar arrived midday in his Sunday casuals, carrying a massive backpack on his back. "What on earth are you planning on a Sunday? In the hospital?" "I am conducting a mock exam here." Dr. Dewar was an examiner, and a frightfully nasty one. How dreadful was he? Sufficient to say, if I wanted to qualify myself as a urologist, I wouldn't want to be at his mercy. Anyway, I will be in the hospital the whole of today. If you have any questions, text me, but I will come back to see you later. "Thank you." "Good luck." "No, not to you. To your unfortunate students." "Yes, they need all the luck they can get." I spent the afternoon napping, only being interrupted by the administration of my medication. Before the end of the day, Dr. Dewar was back. "How did everyone score?" I was curious. "If this was an actual exam, everyone would fail," replied an unsympathetic Dr. Dewar. "You're just being mean and nasty." When it comes to dealing with human lives, there are no compromises. "Can I ask you about kidney transplant?" "You don't need a kidney transplant. Your kidneys are just fine." No, it's not for me. I am asking for a friend." Mary Poppins' mother, who was born with only one kidney, had suffered from kidney failure for years. She was on the recipient waiting list, and now a suitable one was available for her. Receiving a deceased donor kidney was always an unplanned event, which could happen on any day or night. So when they received the call from the hospital, she had to be at the hospital immediately. Out of the body, an organ has a very limited lifespan. Due to pandemic guidelines, she was isolated from her family members as soon as she arrived at the hospital. Donor organ recipients were given immunosuppressants to reduce the chance of the body rejecting the new kidney, hence they had an increased risk of infections. A kidney transplant is a major surgical procedure with a wide range of potential risks. Blood vessels of the new kidney are attached to blood vessels in the lower part of the abdomen, just above one of the legs. The new kidney's ureter is connected to the bladder. Unless they were causing complications, the recipient's own kidneys are left in place. Kidney transplant surgery usually lasts about 3 to 4 hours. Many assume a kidney transplant is a swapping procedure, changing the old with the new. It is not. After a kidney transplant, the recipient will have 3 kidneys in his or her body. Also, it is important to note that a recipient only receives 1 kidney, although a deceased donor donates both, unless one is undesirable, so that the other kidney can go to another recipient. Radio silence was the most difficult thing Mary Poppins' family had to endure. As much as they were informed of the surgery duration, from personal experience, I knew a lot went on before and after surgery. Not knowing what was happening was the dreadful part. It was then that I decided I needed Dr. Dewar to explain to me what would happen in the OT so that I could provide Mary Poppins with some details to ease her worry. For her age, she is very fortunate to still be on the waiting list. Usually, donor kidneys go to younger recipients. Don't worry too much. If she is given the go-ahead, there is a high possibility that all will be well, explained Dr. Dewar. That gave me comfort. As soon as he left, I texted Mary Poppins immediately without checking what time it was for her, excited to enlighten her with what I learned. 29th August 2022, Monday. What's up? Stefan said, can we agree that staying in the hospital wasn't so bad? I said, elaborate. Stefan said, of course, a condition like yours is not too trivial to ignore your doctor's orders, but it isn't as bad as what those with chronic illnesses would have to go through. I said, I didn't say I was not grateful. I know things could be worse. Stefan said, exactly. What I am saying is that when you stop thinking about hospital stays as taboo, your frustration will slowly go away. I would even call this a retreat. I said, since when are you a therapist? Stefan said, are you having sufficient rest? I said, yes. Stefan said, are you eating on time? I said, yes. Stefan said, did you get the quiet you craved for so much? I said, yes. Stefan said, did you get to read the books that you had no time for? I said, yes. Stefan said, I rest my case. You are my fourth urologist. Why haven't I encountered women urologists before? My question of the day for Dr. Dewar. Probably because of the long training. It takes about 19 years of training to be a urologist in this country. I know too, but they're in pediatrics, explained Dr. Dewar. The total training required to qualify as a urologist here is at least 18 years. This is one of the most rigorous in the world, producing many excellent clinicians and surgeons. However, after processing his last sentence, I didn't think it was the duration of training. Not every woman was racing to the altar, doctor, because women too were capable of enduring the longest hardship if their passion demanded it. It had more to do with other obvious reasons, which I won't need to disclose. My girlfriend's mother is either rejecting the donor kidney or the kidney hasn't yet woken up, but you mentioned it needs a few days, right? Yes, it may take longer sometimes. It also depends on whether the kidney came from an old person. The donor was 60 years old, but according to the doctors, the kidney was in excellent condition. It will take time, don't worry. That was the best assurance. I was comforted and excited for Mary Poppins and her family. After years of living with the limitations imposed by dialysis, it had to be life-changing for Mary Poppins' mother. 30th August 2022, Tuesday. After my final dose of antibiotics, Dr. Dewar let me off. He was not in the hospital. He was performing surgery somewhere in the city, but he had signed off all my discharge papers. When it was finally time to go to the lobby to sign off my bill, I was full of energy. I was so familiar with the whole process that I sailed through every step without a glitch. Unfortunately, I spoke too soon. While returning to my room and passing the nurse's station, a sudden dizziness engulfed me and I began to sway. It was fortunate that one of the nurses was quick on her toes. In the blink of an eye, she was by my side, providing support and preventing me from collapsing. It didn't fail to amaze me how nurses, in their petite frame, displayed remarkable strength. Thank you, I am okay now. I can get back to my room, I quickly told her. No, I will hold you while we walk to your room in case you fall again, she insisted. When we reached my room, I was put to bed. Although I had been discharged, they wouldn't let me do anything or go anywhere. A few minutes later, Jasmine came in. We have to report this incident to Dr. Dewar. I hope you understand, said Jasmine apologetically. I just stared at her. I didn't want to say what I wanted to say. I could not openly ask her to violate their guidelines, although that was what I was thinking of at that moment, stubborn as I was. I did not have it in me to ask someone to put their job at risk for me. Okay. That was the softest agreement in my conversational history. So off she went and did what she must. She returned a few minutes later to tell me Dr. Dewar had given instructions to keep me here until he arrived. I silently chastised myself for being such a klutz, for ever turning tiny hiccups into cinematic dramas. Just then, my phone rang. It was Dr. Dewar. I am fine. Let me go, I answered. Good manners temporarily fled my being. You pass out. You are not fine. He scolded me like I was a wild child. I didn't pass out. I got dizzy and almost fell, but I didn't. No, the nurse said you passed out. What could I say? It was their word against mine, and there were a whole lot of them at the nurse's station when this happened. Had I passed out? I was beginning to question myself. Just tell me what you want done now. There was no point in arguing, especially with him. Let me check your heart, he said. What? Just because of this little incident? No. I have on record your erratic pulse every time you are admitted, and you have fainted on a few occasions, twice in front of me. I believe it is a reasonable request. I had nothing to say to that. Let me go. I promise I will not look at this lightly. I will come back to do what needs to be done. I'm going to get the nurse to check your blood pressure and glucose. If everything is normal, I will tell them to release you. But please, do not ignore this. Thank you. A few minutes later, Jasmine came in with the blood pressure gauge and pricked my finger with the blood glucose meter. I passed with flying colours. After lying down for so long, I would be surprised if I didn't. I was clear to go. I got myself changed and packed my bag. Dr. Devo had reasons to be insistent. On top of his observations, there were also episodes of heart palpitations and occasional fainting spells, which bothered me. I was supposed to get it checked. Maybe this was the reminder I should not ignore. The door to my room was kept open since I came back slightly swayed. Just when I zipped my bag close, I heard his distinctive derbies. Where is my patient? Is she still here? Perhaps we should keep her prisoner. My goodness, I knew it was meant for my ears, but everyone in the ward must hear the eloquent Dr. Devo. He was going to make me infamous around here. Must you be so loud? I chastised him. All set and ready to go, he ignored my question. Yes. Don't forget the muffins. They look good. Bring them with you, he said while pointing at my afternoon tea muffins. Yes, I intend to. Any more fainting spells? No. Take the muffins. That's the second time he mentioned the muffins. He must like muffins very much. Should I offer them to him? Well, too bad, doctor. I like muffins too, especially the dark chocolate ones. Before my discharge from the hospital, Dr. Devo and I had discussed at length how to manage this unpredictable condition. Prior to my procedures this year, I was not prone to UTIs. In fact, I couldn't recall if I had one. However, the extent of fibrosis in my kidney suggested a history of repeated renal inflammation over the years. This revelation did not come as a surprise at all, given that my ureter condition had been present since birth, and I had been living with moderate hydronephrosis for decades. This had been happening asymptomatically, or I had dismissed the warning signs. Fever, flank pain, back pain. Since I was capable of functioning and going about my daily routine despite discomfort or pain. As mentioned, I only became aware of living with a low-grade fever during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic when temperatures were regularly monitored. It was nothing short of a miracle that my kidney was still functioning. UTIs are common infections that happen when bacteria, often from the skin or rectum, enter the urethra and infect the urinary tract. Women are at higher risk of getting a UTI because their urethras are shorter and closer to the rectum. This makes it easier for bacteria to enter the urinary tract. The infections can affect several parts of the urinary tract, but the most common type is a bladder infection, cystitis. Symptoms of cystitis include pain or burning while peeing, frequent peeing, wanting to pee despite an empty bladder, and blood in pee. Cystitis is easily cured with oral medication, but almost half of cystitis in women will resolve by itself. Up to this point, I had more than a handful of UTIs this year, but I did not have cystitis. These symptoms were foreign to me. I had something angrier and more vicious: pyelonephritis, kidney infection, the other UTI. While cystitis occurs in the lower urinary tract, pyelonephritis happens in the upper urinary tract. Although less common, due to the wider spread of inflammation in pyelonephritis, it is a more severe infection compared to cystitis. It can progress from cystitis, where bacteria migrate from the bladder through the ureter and into the kidneys, or it can happen when there is an existing complication with the kidney, as in my case, or if a person is diabetic or immunocompromised. Its symptoms include fever, chills, lower back pain, flank pain, and nausea. Intravenous antibiotics work more effectively for pyelonephritis to quickly bring down inflammation, even though the suffering experienced from pyelonephritis may seem trivial to some. Prolonged inflammation causes fibrosis, which can ultimately lead to end-stage kidney failure. Right now, due to mild hydronephrosis, it was evident that my ureter had kinked back, though not as severely as its initial state before the stent was inserted. We didn't know if it had stopped its gradual retreat back to its natural position. Ureters are hollow, therefore they cannot be seen on ultrasound. However, we could easily monitor the level of severity by assessing the extent of fluid retention in my kidney, and I had been diligent in my follow-up because I didn't like surprises. Additionally, there was the potential that my urinary system had been disrupted, making it more susceptible to bacterial infections. In such a scenario, Dr. Dewar proposed the consideration of long-term, low-dose antibiotics, at least temporarily, until my urinary tract acclimated to its altered environment. This suggestion was not foreign to me. I knew that this approach was commonly used to prevent the occurrence of damaging infections while waiting for a condition to settle. It was common to be on antibiotic preventive treatment for years. Hence, Dr. Devo's suggestion of a 3-month low-dose course was acceptable to me. At this point, I had also established that I had nothing against staying in the hospital when it became necessary. Stefan was right. I slept well and I ate well, except for a few instances when my appetite was meddled by circumstances. Since I didn't subscribe to others' definition of fun, I had no qualms about foregoing media entertainment, nights out, or parties, as they were never my preference. While I cherished companionship and deep conversations, I was equally at ease in solitude. Time alone enabled me to occupy my mind with creative thoughts, primarily generating ideas for my upcoming projects, a task made easier when I was free from distractions. Without realizing it, in just half a year, I changed. Gradually, I substituted my anxieties with creative pursuits. I unearthed a deeper desire for wanting to achieve more. I discovered the significance of living life with purpose. Man can endure the hardest trials if he sees meaning in them. The whole difficulty lies in creating that meaning. Quoted Carl Jung. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to keep following the story, click here to listen to the next chapter. And if you're new, you can start from the beginning by listening to the full playlist here. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll know when the next chapter is released. Until then, take care, take a deep breath, and I'll see you in the next one.